Hey everybody, welcome back. I got the wonderful Mr. Jonathan Catherman with me here again today, and we are here to talk about the 5 big changes deployment to bans on teens. And we are at number 4, which is roles. Jonathan, can you talk to us about role changes?
You bet. We have already covered changes in the rules, the routines, the relationships, and now we're on to number 4, change in the roles. And again, so we are recognizing the change, we're naming it and claiming it. A change in the roles is a major effect on us. And when we're those who are still at home, the team that's there, the parents that are supporting it. So now we got to face that change and ask ourselves, are we willing or unwilling for the roles in our home to change? And we got to talk about it. So again, teens, find the right adult to talk about how the changes of the roles in your home, how you're dealing with them, because the change of the roles are huge. Think about this. You used to do these things and you have a list in your head right now. Now your parent is deployed and that list got longer. And these are the roles that you are responsible for. Like example, if you're old enough to drive and you have a driver's license, all of a sudden you have to drive your younger siblings everywhere. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. I am not their Uber driver. Yeah, because just 2 weeks ago, your parent took care of that, but they're no longer here. They're in a different continent, right? And so now guess who has to drive to the music recitals, these dance recitals, the sports events, the go get groceries. All of a sudden you feel like I don't get to drive for fun. I used to want to drive all the time. Now I have to drive all the time. That's ridiculous. That's a change in the roles because you're now taking on responsibility of a driver. That'd be one example. Brian, give me a couple more examples of how roles change for families when the parent deploys.
Jonathan, I'm 14 years old. My mother just made me take the Red Cross babysitter course. And she is looking at me like, oh boy, Brian, you are the new babysitter.
Built-in babysitting, and you might not even get paid for
it. Probably not.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Built-in babysitting. What's another one?
This is a bit of a heavier one, Jonathan. Knowing that parent's behind is struggling and is challenged with these extra roles and demands that they have put on them because of the deployment. And I feel like maybe I can't express my feelings to that parent, to that caregiver. And that can be really hard.
And so that almost is a match to relationship, but it's what teens understand. That's a role because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take on the role of a supporter to that parent and to kind of prop them up. And so you're suppressing your own feelings and because you want to protect the relationship. In doing so, you're taking on a heavier confidant position than perhaps you need to burden.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with all these new rules and routines and relationships, because you got these new roles you've taken on, you need to tell someone. So when one of your roles is still to be a teenager, and yeah, you might have to be the Uber driver, or you might have to do the grocery run, or you might have to pick up your little sister from school or your little brother from practice or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. But don't suppress how you feel about that. Talk to an adult about it. That's very important.
And again, going back to making sure that conversation that you have is mature and wise and not just attached to your feelings, right? You're giving some great examples of it as well.
Here's a couple more. You may have to vacuum the house more often than you used to. You may have to do dishes more often than you may have to go get some firewood. You may have to shovel the front driveway. Yeah, the roles change. This is but mature teenagers understand that. And it may have come earlier than you were hoping, but in a few years, these are your responsibilities anyway. You're in a place now in your home where it's a protected space to practice getting these roles right. I would rather have you practice at home than have to learn out in the world. It's easier to practice at home than it is in your first apartment. It's easier to practice at home than when you go off to college. It's easier to practice at home than if you enlist in the military yourself. It's easier to practice at home than when you get your first job. So take time to understand that some of these roles you've taken on are good practice because you're in a safe place for you to get them right. for when you launch out on your own.
And this brings up a great point too, Jonathan, that we haven't said yet, but our military youth, they tend to be a little bit more mature whenever they move out of the house. They tend to be a little bit wiser for their age because of these demands that have been thrust upon them in earlier stages of their lives, which is really kind of neat. And I know it's probably hard for them to see that right now, for you teens to see that and be like, wow, I don't want these demands on me right now. Well, you don't have much of a choice, so you might as well make the best of and try to thrive with them, right?
Right. And especially when we say this isn't fair, right? And because, like, let's clarify something. Fair is a feeling, whereas something that's equal or equitable, these are measurable. Because the parent has deployed, it's not fair that you have to do this because when you were your little sister's age, you didn't have to do these things, or when they were your age, they didn't have to do these things. What you're doing is a comparison factor now. Don't confuse fair, equal, and equitable. So real quick, equal would be we each have the same amount.
Yeah.
Equitable means we have the amount we need, which means one person may need less than the other person requires.
Okay, so like at the dinner table, whenever my son looks across the table and he says, "Dad, why is your hamburger so much bigger than mine?"
Yeah. And it's because your son's a little kid.
Right.
He got a equitable share.
Okay.
One is measurable. The size of a hamburger is measurable. Whereas if they were equal, oddly enough, at that point, it wouldn't be fair because you wouldn't have enough to eat and your son would have too much to eat. And that's not fair, nor is it equitable, but it's equal. So teens, I know you're going to be like, oh, whatever, no, just go Google search it.
Right.
Don't mix up your feelings of fair with the measures of equal or equitable, because you're in a stage now with your parent being deployed where you're probably looking for more equitable, meaning how do you get the care you need? How do your siblings get the care they need? How does the parents or adults that are home get what they need? And how does the parent that's deployed get what they need? Because that would be equitable. And that was what we want to look at. That's what we want to look for in the context of fair. If it's equitable measurably, we can feel good about it, which makes it fair.
Thank you.
All right. Well, easier said than done, I know, but the change in the roles that your teens face are important. And so I want to commend you all for taking on this conversation and taking it very seriously, which brings us right into the next of the changes that are forced on the family, which is the rituals, which is like rituals. What are you talking about? Sounds kind of weird. No, it's kind of fun. But let's get into this conversation about rituals in our next episode, because it'll kind of shed light then back on the rules and the relationships and the routines and the roles that changed over this time where your parent goes on deployment, and we'll kind of wrap it all up in rituals. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Cool. All right. So we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks. See you then.
Cool.